Colleague in criminal justice and one of the criminal justice graduate assistants. So basically what we're doing is we're looking at the motivations of anonymous through a theoretical lens. In this case, we looked at neutralization theory to try to talk about why anonymous did what they did over the years. So we actually went back. This is part two of a previous study where we surveyed some of the literature to come up with some quotes. We looked at public utterances, newspaper articles, even we did documentaries. One of the things the graduate student did was actually transcribe documentaries. And we were looking at the type of neutralizations used among these individuals who identified as anonymous, beginning with operations from 2008 through 2013. So basically you have the gambit from Operation Chanology through the Summer of Laws. And all those people you think of when you talk about anonymous during that period of time, such as Sabu, the PayPal operatives, all those people that were doing the DDoSing of PayPal, right up through the anti-sec, which was LawSec becoming anti-sec after Sabu was flipped. So that's the whole period of time we looked at. Neutralization theory is it was based on a study in 1957, and basically it said that offenders use verbal or nonverbal utterances prior to committing an act of violence, a violation of law, or values to which they claim to follow. So basically, you can type people's motivations based upon these neutralization theory framework. So neutralization theory allows people to temporarily suspend judgment, deflect blame, cast aside feelings of guilt or negative self-image, or justify his or her action through the cleansing of the conscience. There are a number of types of neutralization, and these are the ones that we used. And we went back to Matzah and Seitz, and we looked at denial of responsibility, denial of injury, denial of the victim, condemnation of the condemners. So that's like, those people are wrong, so therefore we're doing what's right. So we're condemning their actions because they're on the side of wrong, and we're on the side of right. Appealing to higher authorities. Somebody made me do this, or someone motivated me to do this, whatever that action is. There's the metaphor of the ledger, which is that when you add it all up, I come down on the side of good, not bad. Claim of normality. It's normal to engage in this behavior. Diffusion of guilt. Everyone else is doing it. Defense of necessity. I did what was required of me. Claim of relative acceptability. Justification of comparison, and that's another one where everyone else is doing it. And postponement were the additional neutralizations we looked at. So we talked about the history of anonymous and doing things through laws. We talked about the trolling attacks of anonymous, Habro Hotel, where they would form themselves in the shape of the swastika, and just different trolling things they've done over the years. So anonymous originated with B, and what became anonymous was actually not a group with a leader. It was just a group of people who would act out in hacktivist ways. Hacktivism is it's hacking for political reasons. It's usually seen as an act of protest. So in the case of 4chan, that's where anonymous comes from. Comes when you post there, everyone's anonymous. No one posts with their name. So they were sitting around thinking, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we just identified ourselves as anonymous? as this one person, but many people who are feel disenfranchised with the government, the corporate elite, and when they involved into taking political and social action, whether it was internet in person, probably Chinology was the biggest one of those operations, which was against the Church of Scientology, to sort of call out their Church of Scientology's BS, the Church of Scientology's ridiculousness as they saw it, the Church of Scientology's sort of cult status, and how they would, and still continue to this day, will basically surveil anyone who talks out against them. They'll attempt to ruin the lives of people who talk out against them. So Anonymous was like, hey, this is not good. We're going to go after them. And basically, there was this video with Tom Cruise talking about Scientology that was leaked on the internet, and Church Scientology kept taking it down. And then the people in Anonymous kept just putting it up again, over and over and over. They couldn't get it down. And then they got mad. They kept taking this video down that they were making fun of, and they started trolling the church in person by actually going to Scientologist churches and protesting outside an anonymous mask, by jamming up the Dianetics hotlines. They would call and say things like, what's an Elron? How do I Dianetics my face? So this was really the first operation Anonymous took place in, and then it went on after that. There were different wrongs that they found on the internet. Once they figured out they had power as a collective, they started trying to right all the wrongs that they could find on the internet, and as a result, they were also very busy because there's a lot of perceived wrongs on the internet. So Scientology and Operation Chinology is the first example of this. And one of the best books about Anonymous is by Gabrielle Coleman, which I've used in classes before, and it's just called Anonymous: Hacker, Hoaxer, Whistleblower, Spy. And the two main characters they're not characters, they're real people. And the two main people that she talks to are Sabu, the leader of LawSec, and she also talks to other people who took part in these actions. Gabrielle Coleman is a sociologist, and she used mainly quantitative methods by becoming a part of the group. She actually hung out on these 4chan anonymous IRC channels, and they adopted her as their historian. After the book was published, there's a lot of people who broke ranks with her. Sabu was an example, saying that basically she was just using him to get her research done, which, Sabu met with her when he was still actively participating in operations, and told her a bunch of stuff that ended up in the book. Barrett Brown's another person she talks about. There's also a movie that's really good called Hacker Wars. I think you could probably still, it was on Netflix. I believe it's still on Amazon. And you can probably find it bootlegged by other members of Anonymous on YouTube. But those are two great resources. So Anonymous's participation is fluid. You might be part of the collective for a while, but then drop out at another time. You might not agree with the way that the flock of birds is flying at that moment. Membership is global. You don't have a membership card. If you want to be a member of Anonymous, you take an active role in their denial of service attacks, their hacking attacks, or the website defacements on another thing that they've been known to use. There's no hierarchy or leadership. There's no leader per se. That was sort of the thing about when Operation Laws started happening, and you had Sabu claim to be the leader of a hacking group. Anonymous pushed back against that. He was a member of a subsection of Anonymous, but he did not represent all of Anonymous. So that goes directly against the no hierarchy or leadership. So LawSec is considered to be an anonymous subgroup, but not anonymous itself. None of them claim to be hackers and activists, and there are cases where people just downloaded the high earth. Basically, they would download LOC, for example, which is this denial of service attack tool, and would just use it because they thought what was going on was wrong. Another operation was Operation PayPal. PayPal stops accepting money for certain organizations, mainly WikiLeaks. So Anonymous was like, this is not right, and they started launching denial of service attacks against credit card processors, against PayPal itself, and for days at a time, it's knocking them off the web. And a lot of people who were actually arrested for that were high school students, some dude living in the Midwest working on his parents' farm. They just became hacktivists, or they became activists based upon the opportunity that they had to do something. And they felt that it was easy to set in their living room or bedroom to download these tools and launch denial of service attacks, and it was to march around with signs. Non-operations were involved in illegal activity. Some of it was a letter writing campaign. Some of it was sending faxes, the Church of Scientology. So it wasn't anything particularly illegal. And basically, we consider Anonymous to be a hacktivist group. Online activism. So here's the operations: Synology, Payback, Avenge Assange. HB Gary was really the first Sabu operation. They were able to social engineer the people, well, basically the help desk at HB Gary, and someone was able to pose as the CEO of HB Gary. They stole a bunch of documents saying that HB Gary was going to infiltrate Anonymous using journalists and other activities, and they basically dropped docs on all this, published it on Pastebin, and embarrassed the hell out of the company. Operation Synology we talked about, that's a Scientology. Operation Payback, Operation Avenge Assange, really has to do with Anonymous going to bat for WikiLeaks and things that WikiLeaks were doing, and the fact that WikiLeaks could no longer get contributions through PayPal. LawSec, ANISEC. So LawSec, summer of 2012, after Sabu gets pinched by the FBI, becomes state's witness, it turns the group into ANISEC. Stratfor. Stratfor is a defense contractor that sells information. And that was Jeremy Hammond, who is still in prison for that. Jeremy Hammond and also Barrett Brown were involved, and Sabu was involved somehow. The people who have problems with the Stratfor hack is that at the time Stratfor hack, Sabu, who gave them information to break into Stratfor, was actually working for the FBI as an informant. So there are some who would claim that that people like Barrett Brown and Jeremy Hammond were framed. Operation Red Roll. Do you know what Operation Red Roll is? Anyone? I'll tell you what, we can use our Google machine, we can find out. Can we spell it right? So this is the Steubenville rape case, where basically this one guy went after the perpetrators, who were mainly on the football team of a 16-year-old girl by two high school football players. Nothing was really ever done, but this guy ended up in jail for basically defacing the school's website, and dropping docs on these people. So there's all this. He basically just kept at it until the perpetrators went to jail. The school superintendent was arrested on felony charges of tampering with evidence and obstructing justice. This guy was in Lexington, Kentucky, and I've sort of lost track of where he is. His nickname was KY Anonymous. He also did battle with Westboro Baptist Church. Anonymous did a lot of battles with Westboro Baptist Church. So he had been a member of Anonymous doing the operations against Westboro Baptist Church, and then got involved with Steubenville, the Steubenville, Ohio case. Let me close this. And then Operation Last Resort, and that has to do with Aaron Swartz. Aaron Swartz was arrested by the FBI and prosecuted for basically taking academic research and publishing it on the open web. So he was actually putting laptops in the wiring closet at the library at MIT. He was busted for it, and they were going to prosecute him, and he ended up hanging himself in a cell before it ever went to trial. But Aaron Swartz was one of the co-founders of Reddit, was an activist from very early. So Operation Last Resort was to extract revenge for what happened to Aaron Swartz. So we spent probably about 3 years establishing a database of anonymous operations in the United States and the individuals affiliated with this. When you're doing this sort of research, it gets really kind of crazy. You have to do some topography, you have to take data, and you have to organize, and you have to assign data to a specific, in this case we had to assign it to a specific neutralization, and we had to find a neutralization that matched the public utterance. So in this case we had 47 anonymous participated in one or more operation. Median age was 26 years of age with a range of 16 to 65. 95% of them were 45 of them were male. No geographical pattern. There are some members of Anonymous who lived in the UK. 11, Topiary would be an example of that, who lived in the UK. He lived on the Isle of Man, I believe. And he was just basically a teenager who was a latchkey kid who drank too much and decided to screw around on a computer, and the next thing you know, he's a member of LawSec. There were 4 residents of California, 4 reside in New York, and the remainder lived in 17 different states. There was 36 participants in anonymous operations that were charged with filing the Federal Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. So of all the people that took part, we looked at 37 members, but not all of them were prosecuted. So our methods for phase 2 was open source and techniques to collect all the written remarks or to transcribe remarks from film or from recorded interviews. Written comments were found for 31 or 66% of the 47 anonymous operation participants. We had over 55 pages of text and 13,000 words for analysis. So we used latent coding for the third phase of the study, where the coders were trained, and then we sat down and we started coding all these different phrases. We had to cut all of these things that were paragraphs long. We have to find the paragraph that we were interested in, separate that, and then code it. The overall reliability coefficient is 0.94 or 0.92 for coded neutralizations. And this is based on the work of Krippendorf, which the other people in the study got mad because I called it Dumbledore, but that's just the way I am. So 26% fell in the I can't talk all of a sudden. Combination of the condemners. So that's 26% or 62 members, and they said things like um, should police have obtained a reason to acquire information but lacking any overt evidence of criminality to bring prosecution to be allowed to withhold private data. And specifically in the case of Stratfor, um, I agreed. Law enforcement system. They believe the law enforcement system is racist and unequal. There's too much inequality, um, and they targeted the manufacturer. They basically want to take police, demilitarize the police as part of the too. This is some of the themes we're hearing now. Um, and they believe that there's this cyber. Was it Dwight Eisenhower who said, "Beware of the military-industrial complex"? Uh, Members of Anonymous saw this sort of growth not just in the military-industrial complex, but in the cyber military-industrial complex. Basically, cybersecurity has become more militarized, and they see firms like Stratfor as one of the bad actors in this militarization of things like U.S. police departments, the misuse of information as they see it that violates people's privacy, and that's condemnation of the condemners. That's appeal to higher more authority. That's 14% or 33. They believe that what they did was right, and they would do it again because it was morally correct to do. Here's the case where now that I pleaded guilty, it's a relief to be able to say that I did work with the Anonymous to hack Stratfor. One of the sub themes was civil disobedience. So we talked about LOC, which is the low orbit ion cannon. It's a software that will basically take down a website by constantly sending it traffic. And in this case, the participant said, all I did was leave the LOC or low orbit ion cannon software running on my computer because I viewed it as a way of donating to support the cause I believed in, which was protesting against Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, because of financial blockade WikiLeaks. So, the thing about, I remember this operation well because it took down my network. I was working at a law firm for a regional law firm, and MasterCard was using some of the same VPNs or privately routed networks that we were to send information back between us, Morgantown, and Wheeling, and it actually took us offline. So sometimes civil disobedience, and when you're doing stuff like this, they actually did more than just take PayPal, MasterCard, and Visa offline. They took my little law firm offline as well. Other people said things like, I broke the law, but I believe it was something laws must be broken in order to make room for change. Denial of the victim. The victimless crime, 12% or 27 members of Anonymous said they did it because there were no victims. They said basically Stratfor, they engaged in activities that they weren't particularly happy about, and they were a deserving target. Another anonymous member said they were happy because what they did was to stand up to a bully. They said that Stratfor was a bully, or in some cases, if you look at Operation PayPal, they thought PayPal and Visa and MasterCard was a bully. I think here's another one. I think what was more important for LawSec, at least, was showing the world how these major corporations weren't following the basic security. Well, okay, but I don't want to sound like Kevin Johnson, but breaking into a security to tell them that they have security flaws is still illegal. And it's true. but that is really denying the victim, oh, we weren't doing anything, we were helping them, is sort of flipping the whole thing on its head. Um, the appeal to higher loyalties. So there's Operation Sony, where there was this kid that hacked his PlayStation so he could play older games on it. And what happened in that case, Sony filed a restraining order and told him to stop, and they were going to prosecute him and sue him for millions of dollars if he continued. He was also the first person that ever rooted an iPhone, and they asked Steve Jobs about it, and he's like, "No, he's a hacker like I was." Um, but in the case of Sony, they actually went after them. Well, so in this case, the utterance is when your friend asks you to do something, saying he needs you to help, and he offers you want to be as good as me. This is the right way to do it. Your younger self is more than accepting of these terms. Younger, stupid self is happy to oblige. Um, the other appeal to higher authorities was Lee LawSec actually started because of one of the hacks, and it was a security company, HB Gary, and they threatened to hack Anonymous and release information related to Anonymous members, and I got upset. So we found other neutralizations. One of the most interesting was a lady that was interviewed who basically is like, she said, I'm a normal person. I have a garden. I'm a person. Um, they pulled me out and said, we're looking for an anti-American propagandist. I'm like, you're in Kentucky, and I live on a farm and drink Bud Light. So these are all neutralizations. Uh, there's a point when you've passed the point of no return. After you're hacking for so long, you reach a point of no return, regardless if you fear that they're going to get you one day. It's too late. I wouldn't use the term joyride, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't exciting. As a kid, you're with a computer and you think it'd be really cool to be a super cool hacker. It was a sort of like solving a puzzle or problem solving. You find that you complete the problem and you get a sense of achievement. So these are other neutralizations or reasons that people did what they did. There are limitations to this study. We can't establish an etymology of criminal behavior. We can't establish causalogy. When does the neutralization occur? And I argued and argued with my co-authors about this. The main author is Kimberly DeCara-Bora, who is a professor in criminal justice criminology at Marshall University, and then the co-author is Erica Vogel Clark, who was Kim's GA and a very talented student. But when we got to the end of this, I'm like, I think we found a new neutralization. We found these neutralizations that did not fall in these categories. But based upon the rigor of academic writing, they're like, you're taking it a little bit too far. We need to do more research. So we did apply neutralization theory to give it sort of a theoretical framework. So we could build on the work's already been done, especially in the case of theory. We did use secondary research sources. Passages were extracted from the internet, documentaries, online sources, and magazines. Commentary or speech from each participant in operation could not be found. So we did not always find a participant that had spoken on the record about what they did. So we have some conclusions. We think that most of these fall into condemnation of the condemners, and appeal to higher moral authority. Possible crimes, specific neutralizations. It also captures the ideology of hacktivism, fighting for the common good. We're the vehicles for justice. We need a better society to help others. And they really, most people saw these as not a crime because they never thought, they never came up with the idea of, you know, you, they never could fathom the idea that what they were doing was illegal. I can't murder somebody with a computer. they just thought it was beyond their notion that you can actually commit a crime with the computer. But that's in the end what they did by doing these online protests, by launching denial of service attacks, which is just downloading basically a piece of software, pointing at a website and hitting enter. And that was their only act. But yet people spent time in jail and on probation, unable to touch a computer because of their actions. So, is there any questions?